Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and thank you once again for clicking on my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a different one. I went to go interview my friend Bradshaw about the whole Myers Leonard situation, but then the conversation just kept on flowing, so I thought, you know what, on the fly, this is going to be a dry run for my new podcast, Joe's Show, coming to you guys very soon. So without further ado, guys, go and enjoy my podcast. It's going to be a 25-ish minute episode. So just put the video on, go, do some dishes, cleaning, whatever you got to do. Work out, go for a run. Enjoy today's video, guys, and let me know what you think. All right, Bradshaw, thank you very much for joining me today. Let's go straight into it. Myers Leonard, what a fucking dumbass that man is. So for everyone who doesn't know what happened with Myers Leonard, he was playing, I think it was Call of Duty or Apex. He was playing some sort of game on matter. Yeah, he was playing a game on a Twitch live stream, and he just said a racial slur that probably hasn't been used since like the 1950s. So Bradshaw, right off the top, can you just rattle off what was going through your brain for that?
I remember someone retweeted something a screenshot of the tweet that had the video in it, and I was like, what it said racial slur, and I was like, oh boy, this is bad, because I knew he had stood for the anthem, and I'm like, oh, this can only be bad. So I went to find the video, I saw it, and it's just he cocked back for a second. It's almost like his brain mentally cocked back and was like, all right, I'm gonna drop this slur that, again, like you said, no one has used in a very long time. This is not a very commonly used slur anymore.
I didn't even know it was a word. I didn't even know it was a word until today.
I learned it a long time ago. I think it was in one of my history classes or something, but it's not a word that people use anymore. Or and for good reason. It's a bad word. It's a word that should never be used. But the fact that he brought that one, he went into the recesses of his brain, because he paused. He went into the recesses of his brain and pulled that one out, and then kind of laughed, and then I think kind of midstream realized, uh-oh.
Yeah.
Because then there was another video that came out of him getting a phone call from someone, and he had to leave the stream. And I can only presume he said it was his girlfriend or his wife. I can only presume it was her, or he was lying, said it was her, but it was his agent or someone else being hey, you dropped this big word and people are very mad.
Because it was almost instant. Like the second he dropped the tweet, it was instant. But you want to know what wasn't instant, bro? His apology. He had to wait 5 hours. He had to wait 5 hours before the apology came out. But Bradshaw, do you want to know why he waited 5 hours?
Why did he wait?
He had to find the cheapest graphic designer in Miami to be able.
Yeah, he went on Fiverr. He just definitely went on Fiverr and was just like, all right, I need you to write up this apology for me, because they're gonna make fun of me if I use the Notes app. So I need something a little better.
Yeah, and it's fair if they wanted to make fun of him for using the Notes app, but man, Bradshaw, you and I were talking about this earlier on today. In this apology, he said, I know what the word meant, and you're 30 years old. That excuse is passable when you're 12 because you're so young and you don't understand everything. But when you're 30, you are an NBA professional. You get media training. You know not to say these racial slurs. And you were telling me that it would have been even better if Myers Leonard just said, you know what, I knew what the word meant, but I was just having some gamer rage, which is still terrible. But at least you're honest at that point, because if you're 30 and you say that word, you know what that word means.
Yeah, and it was just so weird seeing all the people tweeting. They're like, oh, there's no way he knew what this, there's no way he didn't know what this meant, right? Oh, he had to have known, right? No, there's no question. You don't need to ask that question. He absolutely knew what it meant, because it's a word that's been basically out of public use for 3 decades minimum.
Yeah.
No one's used that word seriously in a long time, unless you're a really bad person. So the fact that you use that word and you don't know what it means, that doesn't make any sense to me. Also, how are you, if that's true and you didn't know what it meant, which, by the way, it's not true. He definitely knew what it meant.
Yeah.
Let's just say somehow that's not true, or somehow that is true, that he didn't know what the word meant. You're 30 years old and you're using words that you don't know what they mean. Why would you do that? Why? What's the point? That doesn't, because that word doesn't make you sound smarter. That doesn't make you sound funnier. That doesn't make you sound, I don't know, doesn't make anything more impressive. I don't care if you're I've played a lot of video games. I've played a lot of games where I get very frustrated. Never once has that word or any other slur come to my mind as like, let me say this. Granted, I've never played online, and I hear that they use that all the time. That doesn't make it any better, but
Yeah.
that's definitely the culture of online gaming, and it's insane that it still exists. And he used that word, and people defended it is the most insane thing to me. Like,
Yeah. And okay, so people defended it, and you and I were talking about this earlier on today, right before the show. This was you tweeted something out that was very telling, and every time something negative like this happens, you hope that everybody is going to come and everybody is going to join forces in saying that, well, you know what he said was wrong, and we can all agree with that. Well, in Bradshaw, nobody really, that's not true, because there seems to be a split saying like, yeah, listen, like he tried to change what he said, like he apologized, it is what it is. But no, it's not. You need to hold, especially athletes in today's day and age, you need to hold them to a higher standard than you would hold you or me, because we are just two regular guys off the street. But an NBA player is somebody that a 7-year-old kid is going to idolize, and that one stream could have literally ruined that kid's life, because all he's going to think of now is, well, my favorite NBA player said that, so maybe it's okay if I say that.
Yeah, I it just baffles me that like we're still not quite there where like they could say a anti-Semitic slur or racial slur, and we're still not at the point where the consensus of we're never going to get to a point where everyone's going to agree on it, because there are still people that like to use those words. But even just on Twitter with mainstream NBA media people, the people who cover a predominantly black league, think you would see that. So it wasn't even an anti-black slur, but still it was an anti-Semitic and a racial slur. How do you not see that? And just your first thought is, this is bad. Your first thought shouldn't be, well, what did he maybe mean by that? Did he mean to say that? Maybe he meant something else. There should be no but. It's just, he said a very bad word. Don't do it. I don't like that he said that. That's the first thing that should come to your mind is, I don't like that he said that. That's a bad thing to say, and he needs to apologize. Those should be the first things, and then we can have a discussion from there of, should he be punished? Things like, I mean, he should be, but we can have a discussion from there. What kind of punishment? Things like that.
So let's go right there. What kind of punishment should Myers Leonard receive as a member of the Miami Heat, a team that is so recognizable all around the world, and they are the reigning Eastern Conference champions? He was in the NBA Finals just a year ago.
I mean, he's not. This shouldn't affect it, but he's not a good enough player that he should get like a star treatment and be like a slap on the wrist. He said the owners of the team are Jewish. That should be. I mean, I don't want to call for someone to lose their job, but when you do something like this and you say a word that has so much hatred in it and so much just. That's such a long history of just hatred and just awful, awful meaning behind it. And then to try and plead ignorance that you didn't know what it meant, that almost made it worse. That to me should mean the punishment should be worse. Like, you should be, oh, you didn't know what that means and you use that anyway? All right, you're definitely gone now. I think they're at the very least, like the NBA will fine him or something. The problem, maybe I would even suggest suspending him. The Heat, I would hope, are going to do something more severe, but I mean, we'll see. But he's at least going to get suspended for it. He has to. He has to.
I mean, if I remember correctly, Dion Waiters got suspended by the Miami Heat, just a year ago for
taking edibles.
And that's not really bad. And I'm pretty sure.
However, this is the same organization that employs Kendrick Nunn.
Yes.
So I'm not going to put. They're not like the beacon of moral greatness. I mean, no sports team is a beacon of moral positivity or anything like that. So we shouldn't hold that. We shouldn't expect them to do a lot. But I hope I would hope they do.
So Bradshaw, Myers Leonard, he's an absolute bozo. He fumbled the bag. He was such a interesting young talent. I mean, he was 30. He's not really young, but he was an interesting player because he's always in the public eye because of Twitch, because of social media. And somebody else who's always in the public eye because of social media is yourself. you have so recently become kind of on the up and coming of Raptors
Oh,
Twitter.
definitely not.
No, to me it is. You are on my feed 24/7. And when I look to basketball news, I always look to you. So let me just
Oh,
pick your brain here quickly. Is where did this love for just talking about basketball start from?
oh man. I mean, I've always loved sports. Like I grew up like my dad's a big hockey fan, so it started with hockey. Basketball was something I kind of like found on my own almost because he liked basketball. He likes basketball. But he's not a huge basketball fan, but it's something I had to kind of grow into myself, and it kind of snowballed. And it started with the Raptors, obviously, because I live in Toronto, so I
Yeah.
started liking the Raptors. And then I found my way to another basketball team that we don't need to say, but I mean, if we want to, it's the Milwaukee Bucks.
Shut up,
Uh,
Bucks. Shut up, Bucks.
I'm the biggest Bucks fan on Raptors Twitter. I like to say that. Yeah, and then just kind of from there, it's just kind of like it's grown slowly more and more because that's just I don't know. I've just found I found basketball to be more entertaining to me than a lot of other sports, and I've kind of accepted over time that basketball is my number one. I used to say like, oh, it's like they're like my four children. I can't pick. It's kind of like I've kind of found a favorite. Basketball is kind of my number one now, but I still obviously like other sports. But it's something about basketball. Like it's such an exciting game. There's always something going on, whether it be on the court, off the court. With the players are so personable and they're so like they have so and they should rightfully have their own opinions. They think for themselves. It's not like an NHL or an NFL where it's more about the team. It's actually about the players. I think that's how league should be. So I think that's something that's kind of drawn me to it is the players are the focus point of the league, and it's not like hey, look at how great this team is doing. I mean, we do look at the teams, but it's also like let's appreciate individual performances as well. That's something I've always found that it's more about you watch sports for the players, in my opinion. That's the entertainment value. It's not the owners. It's not the coaches. The coaches are good, but it's none of those. It's you watch it for the players. You watch for how exciting the players are, and in my opinion, there's no more exciting league than the NBA.
Especially when it gets all the media coverage that it does. You know, you go on Instagram on any given night, you're going to have at least 15 different accounts showing you 15 different highlights from the same game because there's just so much coverage on basketball and it's in the public eye so much.
That means there's also a lot of bad coverage about basketball as
Yes.
well.
But that's just how things are. With all the good, you're going to have all of the bad. And this kind of ties back to Myers Leonard is with all of the good players in the NBA, you know, your LeBron James, your Giannis's, your top tier good guy players who always put the betterment of the other people before themselves. Then you have the bad in Myers Leonard, who, you know, is a bozo and just fumbled the bag. But back to you, Bradshaw. You you want to become a writer. That is your life goal as a NBA fan, as a sports fan in general. You'd like to become a writer, and you are probably the best writer in my life right now.
Thank you.
Like absolutely hands down. If you guys have not read any of Bradshaw's articles yet, I do suggest you guys go and read them. He posted one earlier today about Superstore. By the time you guys hear this, it would have been yesterday. So I'll link Bradshaw's Twitter in the description. But Bradshaw compared the Superstore players to the NBA, the Superstore cast characters to the Toronto Raptors NBA roster. Yeah, that was kind of a mouthful to say, but Bradshaw, what I'm trying to get at is you took such an interesting topic and you made it so much more interesting. Like it's something that it's probably difficult for a lot of people to compare non-athletic people to athletes, and you did it in such a way that made me want to go and watch Superstore. So can you just kind of walk me through how A, you became a writer, and B, where you learned to just be this good?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, like with something like that, with an article like that in particular, like it was just something where like I've seen the show a few times, and I've kind of seen like I've seen people doing articles like comparing like the NBA or NBA players. So I know on my old podcast we did an episode comparing NBA players to characters on the show Community. So I was like, I've seen Superstore and it's getting a lot more popular, so I wanted to compare it that way. And it kind of goes back to the NBA where like the NBA has so many so many good personalities, and the Raptors, if you just look at one team like the Raptors, they have a lot of great personalities on that team. And I mean, thankfully, my website gives me the freedom to kind of write some sillier things. Like I do like to give analysis. I did a big thing about the Raptors against the Nets a few months ago, and that was I took a lot of pride in that. But I also took a lot of pride in this, having a little bit more fun. And I like having those two sides. and I've always wanted to be a writer, mainly because like I've realized I've realized over time I'm good as a writer. That's I don't speak very well, but I write better than I speak. It's I usually notice, but I noticed from like not an early age, but I noticed kind of quickly that like I've always enjoyed writing and I liked telling stories and I liked just like I said, I find it easier to write my thoughts than they are to say them and like
Yeah.
express them verbally. It's easier to write them for me. So, and I find it a lot more fun that way, and I think I can tell better stories that way. So that's kind of always drew me to writing, and it's just something like I used to read a lot. I don't read as much as I should anymore, but I used to read a lot. That helped. I used to always read like the sports section of the newspaper. When we got a computer in our house, I started reading more internet based articles, stuff like that, stuff I do now. And then obviously editing. I've edited a lot of my friends' work. I've edited some of your written work before. I used to edit stuff back in back in university as well, and I think that also makes you a better writer. I think when you edit other people's work, you pick up on things that like other people are doing wrong, and you're like, okay, let me make sure I don't do something like that, or let me make sure or even like something they do right. You see that, and you're like, okay, well, maybe I'll add that or add something like that into what I'm writing. The biggest struggle for me, and I think that's for a lot of like writers when you're first starting out, is finding your voice and finding like how you want to be perceived. And I think it's kind of a tough balance. Like a lot of the stuff I've written has been very serious, very like analytical, a lot of video breakdowns, and it's a lot of like just trying to be more be more informative. But
Mhm.
with the one I just did, I wanted to have more fun with it. And even the one I did before that, where I looked at the Raptors first half of the season, there was a lot of numbers in there, but I also tried to add more of a personal touch to it by comparing them to like a personal story that I had. And I think that's kind of the balance I'm trying to find in my writing, is adding that analytical side and that like informative side, but also throwing in a bit of personality and like making it fun, making it more engaging. So it's not just like you're scrolling through and you're like, oh, this is just a block of numbers, and like, oh, there's a video and like he's breaking down some plays, but making it more fun and making it more enjoyable and making it more entertaining for people to read.
And you definitely do make it more fun. Like I'm not somebody who necessarily loves reading sports. I'm more so of like I like to watch it. I like to watch video essays, but the way that you write sports makes it interesting and makes it fun. And I think that you genuinely have a future in writing because of just the ability that you have to make somebody who might not be the biggest basketball fan a basketball fan in those like 1,000 words that you have on the screen. So let's talk about your journey to get to that part. And you mentioned, in university, you would help your friends, you would edit your friends' essays and stuff. So let's talk about that university step. Let's talk about how you went from high school to university to kind of stopping university in your very last year to go and pursue your dream in sports. So for everyone listening, and I'm going to tell your story for you, Bradshaw.
Go ahead.
It's you left Wilfrid Laurier University after your third year to go and chase your dream of becoming a professional sports writer. You've had some experience in the past being a writer, being a podcast host, a podcast producer, all of that stuff. And you have a couple YouTube videos that have gone somewhat viral, some old hockey highlights, which
Yeah.
watching them back, they're interesting to say the least. But Bradshaw, what was that moment in your head that made you click? Like, hey, I'm in my third year of university. It's now or never. I'm either going to graduate with this degree that I don't really want, or I'm going to go and chase my dream. What was like that turning point for you to go and chase that dream?
So I think this will tie back to my other answer as well. I used to write essays like the the night before they were due, like every university student does. Like I was the pulling all nighter, but not even like it was the research and the writing all in one night. Like I was doing it all the night before until like the next morning, 10 a.m. I submit it and then I go to bed at 10 a.m.
You have
And I
to.
kind of realized then, because I never went back and edited my work. I finished it and I sent it off. And I always got good marks on it. And I was like, how am I getting good marks on something I didn't edit? I did the night before when I was super tired. And I just kind of started to realize, okay, maybe I'm a half decent writer. Like maybe I'm pretty good at this. Um, but it was one of those moments where it was another, like I was up late again and I was writing another essay. And it's hard even as someone who thinks he's a half decent writer, it's hard to write something you're not interested in. It's hard to write something where you're like, I just don't care. And a lot of the essays that you get, in my opinion, for university are things that like they just weren't for me. Like I couldn't put enough personality in them because you have to write in an academic style, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's a lot of benefit to writing academically, but there's just no room for me to put my like opinion in there or put my personality in there and show who I am. And I was kind of one of those things where I was writing it again late at night, and I'm like, this just isn't fun. Like this is not. I don't find I don't find joy in this. Like I liked the area, I generally liked the people there, but the work I was doing, and that's what I always kept coming back to, is I never enjoyed the work. I never enjoyed the classes. A lot of the classes just weren't what I was expecting. So I've always wanted to be in sports, and I had a friend who went to this college that you and I ended up both going to, and he went there right after high school, and he told me about how much fun it was. And I remember at the time he'd always text me like, oh, like I'm doing this for homework, or like I have this assignment. I'm like, man, this sounds so fun, but I can't do that. Like I'm at university now. But there was just one night I searched that school up, and I saw like all I had to do was just like send in a quick application. And I was like, all right, let me send it in. And then the president of the school called me like later that day, and I was like, oh boy, this is not what this is turning a lot faster than I thought. But It was just, I just wasn't getting the full value of what I thought I should be from university. Like I had more fun, and I think most people were like this, but I had way more fun doing the non-school work. I enjoyed the social aspect of university more than the actual university part. And it was just wasting money. Like you're just wasting money if you're doing that, because you're not going to get a degree that you think is going to take you anywhere. I don't know what I would have done with a communications degree, if I'm being honest with you. I was sitting here right now at 25 years old, and I had a communications degree. I don't know what job I would have. I would probably still be working a retail job, because I don't think I would be satisfied. I wouldn't know where to look. I know you have to, like, university is a more like independent thing, and you're supposed to go look for advice. You're supposed to search that out, but I never wanted to. I always thought I could do it on my own, and I just had no idea what I was doing. I didn't get the full enjoyment out of it. I didn't think it was going to take me anywhere, and I was like, I have to go do what I'm best at, and what I've known my entire life. I don't know much. I don't consider myself to be a very smart
No,
person.
don't sell yourself short. Don't sell yourself short. Bradshaw, you are one of the most insightful people that I have had the pleasure to meet in my life. You are very insightful, and you are very knowledgeable about a lot of different things.
Thank you. I just don't consider the knowledge I have to be like very useful. It should be not useful. It should be common sense is how I think about it. Like what I think I'm insightful on, it should be common sense to people. But
not everyone has common sense. Look at Myers Leonard. No common sense.
You're not wrong. Or the garbage people on Twitter that attack women for their opinions.
Absolutely.
That's another story.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always known that I've loved sports, and I've always been able to talk about sports, and I think it's my biggest passion, and it's the thing I know the best. I was like, I owe it to myself to at least see where this could take me. And that's basically the whole thing.
I am so happy that you took the chance on yourself and that you went to this college and learned to become an even more excellent writer than you already were, because this is more selfish for me, but I got the opportunity to not only meet you as a person, but become very good friends with you. And we've shared a lot of experiences over the last couple of years when it comes to just starting our own podcast together, going to New York, and just, you've introduced me and you've corrupted my brain in terms of Funko Pops. Corrupted my brain. Oh, behind me, and I don't even want to turn my camera around. Bradshaw, I thank you very much for coming on the Joe Show today to just let me pick your brain and just let me interview you, one of my very good friends and somebody who I'm very proud to grow up with and see your very next steps in life. So before we go, Bradshaw, can you just tell me, what are your next steps?
Finding a job, finding more work for myself. I'm currently the head creative editor over at raptorsinsider.ca. Go check out our work over there. Check out the Instagram page. We've got 32,000 followers on there. That's a lot of fun. And I write for Dunking with Wolves, so go check out the work over there, and hopefully just getting more written work. I'm honestly not even just written work, just anything within sports media, man. I'm looking for anything, because I don't want to pat myself too hard on the back, but I feel like I have a lot of strength, and I feel like I would be comfortable in many different positions. So I'm not going to just sell myself short but I'm not going to just try and limit myself to being a writer. But I mean, that is the end goal at the end of the day.
Bradshaw, you would be an amazing writer. You are an amazing writer. You'd be an amazing podcast host, podcast person. You got a face for podcast. Love you, man.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Bradshaw, for hopping on this. And I will talk to you guys. We'll talk to you after. Guys, that was today's podcast episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. And come back tomorrow for another segment of Joe's News. Peace.